So thank you very much. I'm from John Lewis. Anyone who doesn't know who John Lewis is, we sell all the things and we benefit Christmas, so you're welcome. I am a UX manager. This UX savvy audience, I'm not going to go into what that is. I'm a digital thoroughbred, but ultimately we're moving away from digital, and this story is about that. Before I get on to the story, I am going to talk about London Town. My town, your town, London Town. John Lewis is somewhere on this map. We are, I don't know, somewhere around here. But ultimately, this is a little bit of a mess, and the story I tell to really exacerbate that is when I went to, I go to Exmouth Market quite a lot, because they have lovely restaurants, a lot of friends go there, and I get shit-faced a lot. And it's really lovely, it's really good. But one time I went, probably about 5 weeks ago now, we all went. I've got a new kid, so I was showing lots of photos to my mates of this new kid. Nina, I think her name is. So I showed lots of photos, and my phone ran out of battery, and I was shit-faced. So when I got out of the restaurant, can't even remember which restaurant it was, I didn't even know whether to turn left or right at this point. So I stumbled around, looking for any sort of navigation points, way lines, anything I could recognise, didn't notice anything. Stumbled into a few estates, which obviously for an alpha male like me is fine. Looking at the cardigan, I'm obviously safe. I didn't shit myself and immediately double back and run away. So this journey took about an extra 20 minutes. And ultimately I thought to myself, if there was London that made sense, that might not have happened, or if there was decent navigation, that may not have happened. But what's happened to London is as old as time. It has different fiefdoms growing up separately from each other, and they've just managed to slam into each other haphazardly and make joining lines which make no sense whatsoever. And that is very similar to all of John Lewis's proposition. So what we've got here is the best, most classic example, and almost pretty much a laughing stock on the digital floor, and the one I'll get the least amount of trouble into for mentioning it is the wish list, because the wish list doesn't have a PO, so I can shit all over it for now. As soon as the PO's high, that's it, I'm going to have to change this slide. So this example is wish list. We did it very quickly with MVP to get out, because we did a brand relaunch. We just need to change some stuff up. But for maybe 4 years that wish list has existed, we've never had a team to do some of the more complicated things, like link wish list to our basket page and classic Amazon thing, which you know about. Link wish list to our checkout journey, you might also like, or after you've bought that other stuff that you can add right now. But probably the two more important things, and this where John Lewis really needs to play a big part, is we've never really linked up our wish list to our data lakes. So we've got all this data and none of it's joined up, so we've got a recommendations tool that can't utilise all this good information our customer is giving us because it's not linked. And this is unknown's unknown. We represent our stores by crisscrossing escalators on our website for some reason, not too sure why. But there's stuff that we do in store, like gift lists, wedding lists, all this sort of stuff, and that's not linked here in any way, shape or form. So that's the problem of siloed thinking and trying to change all that. Ultimately, as you all know, you're part of the industry, kind of the march of time has helped that, but what really helped accelerate that was the new MD. So this Paula, she went quiet for the first 6 months as she became MD. Now she was part of John Lewis right away from grad, so she knows the business very well, but I think she had to go and rediscover John Lewis from her new vantage point. As you get promoted sideways, up and down, you need different lenses on the world. So she went away for 6 months. She listened to, hopefully, people internally, people like McKinsey, strategists, all that sort of thing, and they say stuff like, organisational and logistical stuff, and all that needs to link up. So she came back with words that are more digestible for hopefully the whole business, which is test and learn, agile, experimentation, collaboration, all those sort of words she came back with. Now, as product people and UX people, you're like music to my ears. I would have loved to see design thinking in there as well, just because I'm a UXer, but we didn't get that far. But we've got collaboration, which I think is is very helpful for a managing director to say. So I could take that and run with it. And there were a few new initiatives that were set up to help try and embody some of these words that Paul has said. One of them, and incidentally, this is what collaboration looks like from town planning. People in New York decided squares, so they built their city in grid format. I've never been to New York, but I've heard that none of their streets. If you're at street 13 and you want to go to street 16, you go up 3 streets, or down 3 streets, or left or right. I don't know, I've never been, but ultimately it's a piece of piss. As opposed to London, you get lost every time. So, these initiatives, after I swing back from my diversion, is 3 initiatives: experience desk, personal styling, and gifting. I was part of the gifting initiative, but all the things I'm going to talk about are quite agnostic to design. It's great that we had Chris talk about process and methods, because I'm going to get into it right now with this case study of gifting. And the process we thought would be nice and easy. Everyone in one room, prioritise list of problem statements, although really problem areas, we're dealing at such a high level, we can't get into the weeds of problem statements just yet. We're dealing with problem areas, and then mobilise cross-disciplinary team or teams to really deal with that. So everyone think that's easy. It's of course not easy, because I work for John Lewis. Challenge number 1, people didn't actually understand the point of a workshop. So we were planning a 3-day workshop with every SME for gifting, and that includes an awful lot of SMEs, probably between 15 and 20. I think we got 16 in the end. But the only way we did that, we had an amazing customer experience design manager, a bit of a mouthful, and she kind of acted like a PO. She essentially had to sit down with every participant in the workshop before the workshop, like a pre-workshop meeting, and explain the importance of the workshop. I still had to take it down to 2 days, but I managed to get all the people in the room because of her great work. That's kind of a PO-esque role. And even with all that, I mean, she still doesn't look happy to be there. But, you know, feedback we got was good. So that's very, very helpful. So that was the first challenge. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to run into the nuts and bolts of what I did in this workshop again. I might yada my way over some of it because it's a UX crew and you should all be quite savvy with it. But I'll still get into it a touch. I didn't have time to do primary research. That is unfortunate. So as a result, I just used what's called portraits. They're basically John Lewis's customer segments, which the Insight team give us, and they also give us little videos, 4 minutes for each customer type. And I played them right at the start, sat them down, got them quiet, orientate them to the customer. That's a nice, easy one to do. Second one is set the vision. So here we had everyone answer this question. If you can't read it, it says, in a totally unconstrained world, what's our vision for how we would want customers to think of and interact with John Lewis for all their gifting needs? So I got everyone to, again, sit down quietly and write in capital letters on these A3 bits of paper what their vision was. I then stuck them all up on the wall. We did a silent viewing gallery, and everyone dot voted on either the one they liked, or the sentence they liked, or the word they liked. So it's just a way of getting a heat map over what was essentially a vision statement. We took them away. We got a smaller group, maybe 4 people together, who was in this workshop, and they came out with this. And no one really, it was fine, yeah, that's great, it's a vision statement. The real reason I did this is because at John Lewis, we have levels. Level 10 is a shop assistant, level 1 is like Paula or something to that effect. And it was my very quick way, so I'm level 7, I was dealing with the 6s and level 5s, of just asserting dominance. Because that's taken very seriously, you know, in John Lewis in the 90s, people who weren't managers were still called rank and file. So I needed people to do what I wanted them to do immediately, because I only had 2 days. So this was my way of just setting the scene by saying, you're all here to do what I want you to do, no chat about your KPIs or your agendas. And that's what I did. That's how I went about doing this, and after that, everyone was relatively straightforward to deal with. But obviously, if I kept doing this, I'd done two things where I sat them down and been quiet, and it's not the Steve show. I wanted them to, the point of facilitating the workshop is for me to draw ideas out of them. So then we very quickly, maybe about 10 minutes, I did 2 minutes, just draw a very high level journey of what you did, and then I added a start state and an end state. This board is about 3 meters by 2 meters. I stood up there, everyone shouted at me simultaneously, and I tried to do this as quick as possible, just a high level of what the gifting journey is. This is quite helpful if you're a big company and you are, say, mobilising 3 or 4 teams. If you mobilise 3 teams and they're all in this space, then you're probably screwed because you're going to have 3 teams stepping on each other's toes. If you're going to mobilise a bunch of teams, you want to do it in different places so there's a looser coupling, not such tight coupling. Next, getting into the weeds of an actual customer journey, we create a scenario from Mad Libs. It's up there, I'm not going to read it out to you. The y-axis is your standard kind of awareness, research by decide, customer journey that we go on, and the x-axis is the stuff that we wanted to find out. I quite like tasks, expectations, pain points, business goals, or customer goals, but if you want to strip that back, you can just do tasks and pain points. It's up to you. We had enough time, we could do that. So we have all this, and I'm going to say at this point, assumptive data. We had the SMEs, we didn't have the customers. So this is ultimately assumptive. With that assumptive data, we then created hypotheses. Now, because I was dealing with the managers and directors, they spoke in solutions. I wanted them to create hypotheses of areas that were problems to deal with. So I had to, be quite tough and take some away from them that were clearly solutions. I capitulated slightly. I let them write down their answers and put it on the back, but I threw them post-it notes away as well. So ultimately, we just had some hypotheses. I say some, we had 62. That was the end of the first day. We sent them all away, and we created, again, problem statements is probably the wrong word, more like problem areas. So, for example, there might be a couple of, in fact, there's just one test card, and that was around product assortment, as an example. Then day 2, we create as much conflict as humanly possible by prioritising. That's always a good way to do it. You have 15 people, they're arguing, but what we did now is we had lots of problem areas to argue about around what we thought the customer would like, not just what they had to deliver as a business. So there are several ways of doing this. We had 3 strategic criteria, and we had a list of problem statements, and you could use Harvey balls or other things like that. I just like rating problem statements against each other. Is product assortment higher or lower than being giftable, for example, on the criteria of growth revenue? So the output is what we got here. So these are all the problem areas. They're all ranked by these 3 criteria, and then you add them up and the lowest score wins. Why I quite like this is because getting those 15 people in the room was painful. I didn't want to have to do that. If suddenly the MD turned around and said, this year we're all about growth revenue, I don't care about the other 2, I could just do a bit of maths and this would reprioritise itself, and we know what's next to go after. So that created a sort of a slight physical connection of what we wanted to do next. The next challenge was no one knew the whole area, no one knew who owned what. Now that's very intriguing in an area like gifting, because that's never been thought of holistically or strategically in John Lewis, which I know sounds weird. We're all about buying gifts at Christmas, but that has always fallen through the category gaps, because our categories are more along the lines of home electricals or furniture or stuff like that. So the directors, scoring a bit of an own goal here, they basically sat everyone down and said, these are all the people, you're all in this big group, kumbaya, get on with it. So what happened there is people were at each other's throats going, well, this is my bit, or this is my bit, I'm in charge of this, da-da-da-da. And we've got to look internally, of course. We can't hire new people, we can't get too many more agencies involved, that costs too much money. So we had people moonlighting as POs, which is crazy because PO is a full-time job, and even most POs struggle when they have 100% to do their job. So this happened a lot. This is like the morning stand-up, and this is the UXer or the personal styling team ordering her wedding cake because no one else was at the stand-up, except for me just coaching her through, saying it'll be all right, they'll show up on their super core day, maybe not their core day, because one of their core days they needed a super core day to really get bums on seats. So the way I dealt with that is just going hard lean. With the stakeholder map, I could do some ideation off of, this was myself, just to show these were all the propositions that we could do for price points. Did a bunch of them, and then because I knew exactly who to go to for viability, I videoed myself talking through that because I'm not going to design anything too pretty, and then emailed her the video, and she came back saying, that and that we can't do for business viability, and then I said the same thing to feasibility. Obviously it says technology there, but this is more logistics because the price point of an in-store store wrapping service, and they knocked off 2 or 3 others. So in reality, I very quickly got to a point where there was only 1 or 2 things we could realistically go after, given the scope and time we had. Obviously, I had to be a bit practical about this. So in that respect, that was very helpful. I utilised some tools and I went lean, and that's pretty much all the documentation they got from me and the video. And that's all they needed because they knew and understood who I was and what I did in this particular organisation, in this particular project. So what was the final output? So after 7 months of kind of working together this way, storming and performing, blah, 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 we sort of went from something that looks like this in store, which is everything collated together, to something that looks like this. And this is, for John Lewis, is dramatic. The idea of having a water bottle next to a mug is mind-blowing. I know IKEA has done this for years, but that is not something that happens normally. And the idea of getting a slightly more special space store fit, again, absolutely outstanding. So we consider it a success, and it's beaten forecast, which is great, but more importantly from your point of view, because you're all UX, what the customers think. The customers liked it. There were certain aspects that they didn't like, and we're looking to improve upon them. But what I found most interesting is, as we delivered this in November, doing in-store research became quite intriguing because people were there to Christmas shop and do all that sort of thing. So it's very hard to get very concrete in-store customer data that was qualitative. So if anyone has any answers to that, come speak to me after, because what we have is good, but I think it's maybe a bit ropey. So that's what we ended up with after doing this stuff for 7 months, and this way of working has been pushed into a high-level strategy that the MD has now created and moving forward with, and there's a lot bigger workshops and a lot scarier stakeholders are involved. So this is going to be the way we go for John Lewis, and the sort of UXs we need are these kind of orchestrators and propositional people, and we're hiring for those. Not that we can afford them, of course, but we're hiring for them. So if anyone wants to take a 20% pay cut, come see me after. So yeah, that's where we're at, and I'd love to do more of this, and we get the opportunity to do more of this. But the intriguing thing is, and the final thing to take away is, I think the rest of the business would want to do this as well. We had a retro about gifting product, and people were, like store design, they were pissed off that they had to go back to the old way of working, where they'd get a brief and deliver the brief. They liked sitting with partner capability in store design and store planning and the POs and the UXs all together to bounce ideas off. Because ultimately, there's so much creativity in that building, but they're all in their business silos, so unlocking them through briefs isn't the most effective way of doing this. And we were all annoyed that it took the managing director to say, hey, sit next to each other and work together. We would like to do that in the future. But I think if I could give you, and I'm in the middle of Old Street, I maybe don't need to say this, whereas I do in some of the other conferences I've done this talk at, is that if you get any sort of kickback to say, we can't afford to work this way, or it takes too much time, just say John Lewis are doing it. John Lewis are working this way, and we're committed to working this way, and it will only get more relevant throughout the rest of the time I'm at John Lewis, because I'm going to beat anyone up that goes back to design by briefs. So thank you very much for your time. I'll take questions at the end, I think.